lift landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazell was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO classified. UFO classified. No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Welcome to yet another groundbreaking edition of UFO Classified. I am happy to be here to see all of my friends in chat. I want to thank you all for supporting me and keeping the show alive. The show is a listener-supported show, so everything that you do to contribute, it means a great deal to me. I have had an interesting week, to say the least. What else is new in my world? Just a little story to tell you to see what all of you think. I was having a conversation in my business yesterday, and was talking to someone that I've known for a long time, and our conversation was about some specific things that are very random, and I was watching NASA's Unexplained Files last night with my girlfriends, and I received a text from an unknown number, and in that text, it mentioned specifically 3 different things that I was talking about in that conversation in person. So it was a very unusual experience. I don't know if you guys have ever had anything like that happen, but feel free to let me know in chat, give me your feedback. And of course, on the news front, I just want to throw this out here. We've got the speaker lineups for some of the biggest UFO conferences in the world, and it is amazing to me to still see that these conferences are supporting people who have falsified their backgrounds. I'm going to throw that out there. So make sure when you are supporting conferences that you support conferences who do background checks on researchers and promote good ethical research. And speaking of good ethical research, my guest tonight has become a very dear friend of mine. We've had lots of interesting experiences together and weathered some storms, and I reached out to him a few years ago when I was state director for MUFON because I really liked what he had to say, and I also respected what his organization stood for. NARCAP is the National Aviation Reporting Center on Anomalous Phenomena, and they have done groundbreaking research with regard to commercial and military pilots and UAP sightings. They started in 2000 or in 1999, and Chief Scientist Dr. Richard Haynes and Ted Roe joined forces. It is really, truly a remarkable organization, and we need to remember them and remember the work of Ted Roe. Ted, I thank you for being on the show. You've been on the show, this is your 3rd time now? 3rd or 4th?
I think so. I think it's the 3rd time. I think so. Aloha and hello to everyone.
Well, I'm happy to have you here. And like I was mentioning in the opening, you and I have been through some very interesting things together, and we will definitely discuss that and later in the show. And I think it is important to bring up and stress to my listeners how to be smart when you're dealing with all of this and social media and people who hide behind anonymity and all sorts of good stuff. But first of all, I want you to tell new people that haven't heard you on the show before, give us your background.
Well, sure, Erica. I'm the executive director of NARCAP, and I the National Aviation Reporting Center on Anomalous Phenomena. And I became involved with Dr. Haynes through a sighting experience of my own that was so disturbing for me and blatant that I ended up reaching out to the NASA PR center at Ames Research Center down in Palo Alto. And Dr. Haynes showed up in my email just a few hours later and interviewed me and my fellow witnesses. And one thing led to another, and he told me that he, as his retirement project, he wanted to start an aviation study, and asked me if I would help him do that, and I did. So I've run the executive side of that program ever since, up to his retirement in 2015. By the way, we should mention that. But Dick is no longer with NARCAP at this point. But in that time, we managed to do quite a lot, including define and ingrain the term UAP, or unidentified aerial phenomena, that everyone seems to use so often these days. And we did quite a lot of other things too, but our thrust was aviation safety cases only. We weren't so interested in observations as we were cases that involved effects on aircraft, avionic systems, pilot reports, and so on. So that's kind of our background.
And I have to ask you, because, as of late, this UAP has become quite a topic. I mean, apparently there was a Richard Dolan video and another video that came out where they were discussing the origins of UAP. Yeah,
it's the term. The first time I came across it was I think in British ufology. But it wasn't a defined term. It just was a generalized term, unidentified aerial phenomena. In 1980, Dr. Haynes, when he was working with J. Allen Hynek, defined the term unidentified aerial phenomena and began using it privately. And the whole point of it was that an unidentified aerial phenomena has been studied and has been determined to be an unidentified aerial phenomena by people who are qualified to make that determination. The definition's available on the NARCAP site. If you just look up definition UAP, it should pop right up. But and we chose that term in 1999 because it was clear to us that the term UFO was had an inappropriate meaning, that it meant alien spacecraft, and oftentimes our pilots weren't reporting objects, they were reporting lights. So we wanted to be more accurate in our presentation of unidentifieds, so that we could say unidentified aerial phenomena /light or /object. And kind of get away from the assumption that these things are piloted, or that they're because we have natural phenomena we haven't resolved yet that seem to be mixed in with these others that are a little less natural. But so we had to walk that line, and the reason you hear me parsing words is because we were dealing with pilots and air traffic controllers, and it's a very conservative social environment, and it isn't about what I've seen and what I believe about it. It's what they want to tell me, and I have to encourage them to feel that they can speak to me frankly, and so that we can get the information we need. So we didn't spend a lot of time dwelling on the source of these observations and speculating on aliens. We didn't allow alien themes on our website. We took all connotations of alien spacecraft away from the website, and we put a distance between ourselves and most of ufology too. We weren't interested in playing to ufology in sort of the inner court of podiums, the various.
Wow, I can't imagine that.
What we wanted to do was do outreach into new territory. We wanted to carry the activist ball into new territory and to raise this issue that pilots are having aviation safety related encounters with unidentified aerial phenomena. And whether they're natural or not, well, we've got to work that out. But let's just acknowledge that and start taking some kind of proactive steps in the field. And that's been our mission. So we didn't have much to do with ufology. We weren't there to be famous. We wanted to get to the answer.
And I think that is very admirable. I mean, as you know, we've had many conversations about the people in ufology that seem to gravitate towards the field and that are also dominating, the topic, which is really it's unfortunate for people who've had life-changing experiences, that they get to, turn on YouTube and hear somebody who's either delusional or just there to sway political or religious, beliefs.
Yeah.
And it's just like, dear Lord, it's really unfortunate.
I get an icky feeling pretty much anytime I'm involved with social media or YouTube around this subject. It's like an instant cortisol injection, just a complete downer. The lack of documentation, the lack of respect for the information, it's just astounding. The willingness to put ego and image in front of data that is so important, and to spend time speculating when conversation should be focused on results-driven research and finding the answer, not somebody's idea of what the answer might be or whatever gets them on a podium this week. It's there's a solution to this. There's a reason all of this is going on. We need to understand it, and we need to understand it soon. And I don't see anything in this movement that is moving us in that direction. That was one of the other reasons why NARCAP tended to keep its distance through most of its iteration.
And that, I think that's a perfect approach. The more I encounter and witness, the less I want to be a part of that quote unquote community. At some point in time, they need to have just any bit of integrity. But I see this now as the problem is getting much worse. And so it's one of those things, how do you make a change, or do you just step away from, that altogether?
Well, I think what you do, there's a couple of things you need to do, and you need to have adequate firewalls in social media. You need to stay focused on results-driven research and proper documentation, and then you need to find a pool of qualified minds that understand how to peer review, to look at the work, and then the information needs to be tested more. We don't have very much of that going on there, with some notable exceptions. Mr. Strand and Dr. Teodorani, and a couple of those are operating at those standards, but pretty much everybody else isn't, regardless of what they might tell you about their scientific rigor. And what we're seeing is a spin out. I haven't seen any movement in ufology in the entire 20 years I've been involved in it. Nothing. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's continued to make the same noises. It's kind of like when every now and then I end up in Civilization. I live out in the brush, and every now and then I end up in Civilization and turn on TNT, and it's the same show that I had, the last time I was in a hotel room. How long ago? It's
right.
Like you don't miss anything when you tune into ufology, and it's a big mistake to think that you are. You need to focus on your work and on your research and finding a good audience to assess it. We wrote aviation papers. We didn't write them for ufology. We wrote them so that pilots and air controllers could understand them, and so that aviation professionals and managers could consider them in their own decision making. We weren't there to perform for ufology, and because of it, well, as long as we held that position, we were quite successful at what we did. I was dealing with a unique but not unheard of problem in the declining health of my chief scientist. As I mentioned, it was a retirement project for him in 1999. Okay, and we went through quite a lot of changes between them and when he resigned in 2015. And since then, I've learned that his health has declined even further. So I think a lot of our best work was done in the first 10 years. I could have resigned at that point happy. Hey, put a lid on it. So.
Well, I'm glad that your dogs are as excited as mine.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard your little yapper over there, little sweetheart. I've got one that's about that size and not quite, probably much older, but anyway, that's kind of where I'm at with that question.
So now go back to the beginnings of NARCAP. Who were some of the first people that you got involved in the organization?
Well, Dr. Haynes and I, first we did an assessment of the UFO field, as it were, and made some decisions about how we would steer our organization and image. And I that was my responsibility as an executive. He wasn't really thinking about that as a scientist. He really didn't want anything to do with driving the organization. That was all up to me. So most of the initiatives and connections that were made were through my shaping of the organization in a way that it could do that. And he did the work that made it relevant. So in the beginning, we decided that we would have research associates because each case is different, and you might need the expertise of a radar person one day and the expertise of a pilot another, or, you know what I mean, an air traffic controller in another case. So what we wanted was a battery of experts that we could go to when we needed them. And so we had about 25 of those in the States. And most of those were aviation sciences people that Dick knew through his career at NASA and Raytheon. And then we had an advisory committee, and we brought on people. Dr. Vallée joined us very quickly, Jacques Vallée, and Dr. Bernie Heisch, another really good UFO scientist. Mr. Larry Lemke, member of the Mars team at NASA. And Mr. Brian E. Smith, who was at that time, he was the chief of the Aviation Safety Program Office at Ames, but he has since, I don't know if he's retired yet, but the last I heard, he was a pretty high-level NASA administrator. And then Susan Dreisky and myself made the executive advisory committee for that. And then we had international advisors, another 25 or 30 international advisors, people like Vincent Juan Ballester-Olmos and Dr. João Cardoso, and others. So that was kind of our beginning. People jumped on board really quick when they saw a chance to do something different.
I bet, and I mean, you also you introduced me to Erling Strand and
Yes.
Massimo and people like that, and that was really that has been one of the highlights of my life, is to actually talk to people that have their feet on the ground and are looking at this. They understand there's something very real and it deserves to be looked at with integrity.
I searched these people out, Erica. I used my position at NARCAP and my exposure to find people that I really thought were carrying the ball, and even over Dr. Haynes' opinions of these folks. I think I published Massimo's first paper in the U.S. on UFOs in like 2006, and at that point I'd known him for a couple of years. Met him through Mr. Strand, and I met Mr. Strand out in the desert on a site you and I know about, actually doing field work and bringing instrumented studies here into the United States, similar to what he's doing at Hesselin. And I had every reason to have respect for these guys and trust what they were doing, because I'm an experiencer myself and I've seen the phenomenon. So what I wanted to do was find people who were objective and intelligent and who were striving to get the answer and not stand in front of the data, but stand behind it. And,
right.
Dr. Teodorani and Mr. Strand, I think, represent that very, very well.
Right. And for people that don't know who Massimo Teodorani, Dr. Teodorani is, he is an Italian astrophysicist, and Professor Erling Strand is somebody that I speak about quite frequently because he's
not a professor, Erica. He's got a master's. He's an engineer. Mr. Strand.
Mr. Strand. Well, thank you for correcting me.
Sure.
Because you sure see, and I've seen many different articles where he's.
Oh yeah, they do it, and I've done it until I got it right. But I wanted to say that.
Forget that again.
Well, I wanted to say that Teodorani worked on the EMBLA team, which was the Norwegian-Italian joint team at Hessdalen in 2000. He was the team lead for the Italian team. He was there with Renzo Cabassi and some of the other guys, and that's how I first came across his name, was through Erling and Erling's work.
Well, and that's incredible, and I can't wait. We definitely have to talk about our trip to this site that you visited, and your first trip there with Dr. Strand Erling. Professor, I won't say professor. Maybe I will just to,
I only say it because I kept making that mistake forever. You know, that's my own nervous tick popping up.
Well, I learn a lot from you. That's all I'm saying. So,
well, you know, I met him, and do you want to talk about the site?
Let's. We've got 3 minutes to break, and so just give us a little intro on the site.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned, I was using my access as executive director of NARCAP to find researchers who were doing what I thought was relevant field research, and I came across somebody who was doing work at a site in the Southwest U.S. In a pretty inhospitable site, and photographing and documenting unidentified aerial phenomena. And so I arranged to go there when Erling Strand was going to be there, and spent a week on the site with Strand and this other party, who nobody should ever be caught in the desert with, by the way. And we observed unidentified aerial phenomena while we were there. I made a repeat journey with this other party, and we had a very direct encounter, several of them, with unidentifieds. And then I went back on my own. I brought a team back there myself and saw more unusual things, and was subjected to some unusual circumstances that made it very difficult to even photograph them. And then I've just kept an eye on the place because it's one of these spots where I'm pretty sure they come and go from. And it's not the only one. I found another one here in Hawaii that's I've witnessed things at too. So there are places where there are concentrations of unidentified aerial phenomena. A lot more work needs to be done to resolve just what's being seen there. But I know what my guts tell me.
Well, and you have been there with the best of the best, and it is, I will say, it is a very unique site, and I look forward to talking a little bit about our experience there, because that will stay with me forever.
Sure. Well, we documented some odd stuff there too, so looking forward to it.
Yeah, that'll be fun. And we've got 1 minute to break, so I just want to tell everybody thank you for getting into chat. I see some of my former guests in the chat room tonight, and that is really, really cool. I'm going to have some of you back on the show very soon, so look forward to that. And go to ufoclassified.com to find out more about my journeys and to get information on research, and then go to narcap.org to find out about the really important work that Ted Roe has done for the past few years. I will catch you guys on the other side of the break.
Stand by. This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes. Erica Lukes. The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified. UFO Classified with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Toxins are everywhere, from the air we breathe to the food we eat and the water we drink. In a world where 80,000 known toxins and heavy metals threaten our very existence, how are you going to protect yourself and your loved ones? Introducing Pure Body Extra Strength, the world's first colloidal zeolite that helps trap and remove toxins as well as heavy metals from your body that are messing with your memory, clarity, sleep, and focus. Don't just take our word for it, or the testimonials from our thousands of happy customers. Check out the hundreds of articles and case studies on the National Institute of Health website, proving zeolite's powerful ability to remove toxins. For a limited time, listeners to KCOR will receive 10% off their first order. To get started, go to trypurebody.com and enter promo code RADIO10. Again, that's trypurebody.com. Toxic junk is all around us, but now you can take back control of your health and protect yourself by detoxing with Pure Body Extra Strength. You'll be on your way to sleeping better, thinking more clearly, and feeling more energetic. Go to trypurebody.com right now and get started today.
Now, broadcasting in digital HD radio.
In the shadows, a voice cries out. Evidence that you're not alone.
You said my name. What is your name?
Proof that the living and the dead coexist. Or do they? Every Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, join writer, producer, and paranormal investigator Greg Bakken on Ghost Box Radio as he explores, interviews, and investigates evidence alongside some of the best in the paranormal community and beyond.
6 people killed.
Ghost Box Radio, Wednesday nights exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network, because the dead don't sleep. Ghost Box Radio.
We interrupt to bring you this.
Would you like to advertise on KCOR Digital Radio Network?
This is what I'm talking about.
At a fraction of the cost of traditional radio advertising, why not?
Tell them the good news.
Whether you need to promote your next book, product, or service, we can customize a package for just about any budget.
Finally, there is hope for the hopeless.
Why limit yourself to a tiny local market when KCOR can brand you to the world?
Here's all you do.
Visit KCORradio.com or contact our sales department by email at saleskcorradio.com.
We want it now!
See the difference with us by letting us work for you.
This ain't reality TV!
The KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Now you ready to go? Turn your radio.
It's showtime!
You're listening to the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Break this up.
Broadcasting from the heart of Las Vegas, Nevada.
Their base is so large it has to draw most of its power from the nearby nuclear fusion plant.
The future of radio is here and now.
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts!
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
I'm Erica Lukes, and I am happy to be here tonight. Thank you for getting into chat. Thank you for listening to the show. I get more and more support worldwide every week, and it means the world to me to get your messages, and I will just apologize for not responding to all of them. I appreciate it. I need about 20 more of me, or maybe not. Maybe the world doesn't need that. That could be kind of frightening now that I think about it. I am here with one of my friends and fellow colleague. Ted Roe is the executive director for the National Aviation Reporting Center on Anomalous Phenomena, known as NARCAP. They've contributed a great deal to the subject and the research of UAP with regard to aviation safety, and I have had lots of interesting experiences both in the world of ufology and the internet trolls and all of that stuff, and then also one of the highlights of my life was the few days that I spent with Ted and Jeff Cox out at a specific site, and we were talking about that before we went to break. So, Ted, take it away on giving us the background.
Sure. Just a little bit about the place itself. It's a known place. The native people there have pounded rock art into the walls of the canyon there for quite some time, and And they didn't live there. There were no charcoal piles, no evidence of habitation. They went there for very specific reasons, and it's my opinion they went there to view what takes place in that little valley. And some of the things that happen, for example, I've seen a row of 5 red lights hovering above the rim of the canyon, equidistant and the same height above the ground on the rim of the canyon. I've seen mobile lights moving through the area. I've seen phenomena moving through in daylight that look like walls of shimmering lightning coming down the canyon. So the place is unusual, and I was taking Erica there because I'm trying to get some interest in it, which is very interesting. In all the years that I've known about this place, I haven't been able to get anybody to go out there with me other than the people who know, like Mr. Strand and Dr. Teodomani. But I managed to talk Erica into it. We were speaking at a conference nearby, and so we gave it a couple of days, and we had observations. And if you want, Erica, you can do that since you were gleaning the video last, or I can.
You know what? Let's talk about, before we get into just some of the things that we experienced when we were on the site, how we prepared to go there.
Oh, okay. Well, I take these places kind of seriously, so I did a little research with the local shaman, and I talked to several of them who were at the conference, and got some advice on making offerings when you go into the canyon and so on, and cornmeal offerings and this kind of stuff. And that was part of it, but that was the immediate preparation. We, I'm in our NARCAP work, I've never used remote viewers or anything, but I wanted to have a remote viewer take a look at that site, and so we did, one that Erica recommended. And I think he had a pretty accurate hit on it, in my opinion. You, Erica?
My computer is just having issues. You know what?
Okay.
It is interesting because Tunde, yes, and he's been on the show before. He lives in London and wrote a book on remote viewing, and I've had him do several different things for me, and I've always been absolutely stunned at his accuracy. And that the Arizona site was no different. And it is really interesting when I go back, because we were out there, 2 years ago? And I look again and reread the information that he did in his session. It is more and more of it is making sense. I mean, it's really...
he had it geographically to begin with. He was right on the geography of it all, and then from there, he's right on the other stuff. I know that because of what I've seen there. When Massimo Teodomani, the first paper that he published in the U.S. was about the site that we were talking about, and he mentioned while he was there that he had thought that he had been targeted with a military-grade laser sight. He said it was an orange targeting site, and it's in the paper. I don't know if you saw that or not.
Yes.
But you want to tell the audience what happened to us the first night we were there?
Well, the first night that we got there, and I think this was really interesting. I mean, we had I had all of my equipment. 40 pounds of equipment, and then Jeff had his as well. And we set up a strategic area where we would each go. And
so we could kind of have a general layout of coverage of film.
Right. And so, at dusk, I climbed up a very rocky mesa, and it was camped out right underneath a petroglyph, and it was just absolutely the view was just stunning. And Jeff was over on top of a different mesa, and you were in towards the
Center of the canyon, yeah.
Right. And about, oh my gosh, was it about an hour into this, I began to notice that on my infrared camcorder that I was seeing that the screen would go white, and then there was some sort of, it almost appeared like a mist that would move in front, and I couldn't see it through the naked eye, and I couldn't pick it up on any other piece of equipment, and I was radioing both of you, and I asked, Jeff, okay, what are you picking up? And interestingly enough, on his infrared camcorder, a different make, he picked up the same thing, the same flashes, the same, almost the mist that was moving in front of the camera.
Is that when you picked up that distinct flasher that was in the brush?
No, that was
okay.
Yeah. This was the first night, and then we went back to Jeff to his trailer. He had a big camper, which was our headquarters when you and I weren't camping out there. But we reviewed, the footage and looked at this, and it was just so interesting to me, and I have no idea. To this day, I've sent the footage to several different people, and including, Erling and Massimo, and it is very interesting.
When we finished being spread out that night, we came back to one point, and that's where we set up our night observation. And while we were sitting there, we see this orange light out towards the north. And I'm watching it, and it's flaring up, and then when it flares up to a certain point, I'm seeing a little black hole in the middle of it. And I point this out to Erica, so we watched this thing for quite a while, and I got a hunch that it's the same military site that Massimo was talking about. We got up the next morning, I turned the telescope on it, and there was nothing there. I had pretty much marked out where to look, and it wasn't there. There was nothing there. That was just bare desert floor. That's the first time I've seen that light either. Then some other things took place while we were there. That flashing beacon that you pick up on to the east of the site is interesting as well in the infrared. This is this is the whole problem I have with all of this. We need to get people out there. We need to do a steady observation. We need to have non-disclosure agreements. We need some respect for the information, and then to do some work and really pull this stuff together in a way that makes sense. We've had numerous observations. Some of the brightest minds ever have been out there. People like Persinger and others have been there. And it's a matter of doing the work and actually resolving what we're looking at. But I got a hunch we're looking at something that is very important, and we all want to know more about it. The things that I've seen while I've been there are that you and I didn't see on that particular trip have been very intriguing. And they're repeating phenomena. I had heard about them happening there before I saw them happen. So they likely happen again. And this brings me to another point about these types of places. I didn't believe there were places where UAP phenomena repeat. But other than like Hezbollah seemed like I figured there was some natural explanation for Hezbollah. May well be. But there's something happening there that's unusual. And like I said, I didn't believe in these things. And then I came across this one. So we started looking around, and we informally documented about 70 places where people claim to see unusual lights all the time, or, repeatedly. And then I was training with a priestess here in Hawaii, Haleaka Iolani Puli. She's a priestess, keeps the temple at Kealakekua Bay. And she had told me about a place where they see UFOs. And she said, Brada, the UFOs that come out of the ocean, they come in over to Pali, the cliff, they collect the mana, the spiritual power, and then they disappear in the Keopuka up the hill. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because priestesses are showmen as well as supernatural beings. And so I just kind of, I'm not a religious man, so I wasn't studying with her to be into Hawaiian religion. She brought me into it all. So anyway, one night I'm sitting down there and at the temple, and sure enough, out of the water comes an orange light, and it turns into a flying saucer and goes right over my head, flares up into a bright white to where you can't see the shape anymore, and disappears behind the ridge. Just the way she said it did. So I started asking around, and the locals have been saying, "Yeah, we see him above the water, below the water." I had 3 friends come to me and said they saw one underneath a pod of dolphins. And all of these people were not the kind of people that would waste time to come and tell me about it for the fun of it. So there's things happening. There are places where these things recur, and we need to bring good minds in and really start looking at what's going on here logically and not project on it because it's alien. We don't know what it is. We have to look at it and let it tell us what it is, judge it by its actions, and make good decisions around it. We aren't going to have less reports of this as the population expands. And the overlap that seems to be taking place between these sightings and people's lives has to be addressed.
Absolutely. And I think it's, you bring up a really important point. I mean, far too often we bring our own belief systems onto whatever this is. And, I've mentioned on my show before that I've got a really wonderful archive that I keep building and get more things donated to me every day. And it is really interesting to look back historically and see, in the late 40s, how this subject, especially in America, was dominated and tainted by people with religious and political ideologies. It has been absolutely stunning to me, and I think that it's a hard thing to overcome here in America.
There is a lot of cognitive dissonance around this subject, and what that means is that people are pushed out of their comfort zones. What they like to get, what gets them and sustains them through their days, is their beliefs and how things are. And when information comes in that challenges that, they react in different ways, sometimes violently, sometimes they ignore it, sometimes they embrace it and just, oh, yeah, that's all part of the old plan. It's like the Catholics. They embrace the idea of aliens. They're going to send Jesuits up to wherever they're from and correct their ways. And that's a way of coping with cognitive dissonance, because the belief system itself didn't ever accommodate aliens. So this happens in a lot of different ways, and we see the K Street crowd in Washington D.C. I've heard rumors that that part of the reason that the Pentagon program was shut down, that everybody's talking so much about, had to do with the belief of some congressman that this involves angels and demons. Now, seriously, if we're dealing with alien incursions here, can we get beyond superstition just far enough to make good decisions? Bring some logic and some intelligence to this, and look very carefully at what's going on. And if we can't determine precisely that it's happening, we can certainly be vigilant, because everything in science is telling us we live in a populated universe. There's nothing wrong with being vigilant and developing a body of work that's based on understanding that we don't know, rather than projecting what we'd like things to be, or what we think we know, or what we want to believe because it makes us comfortable.
Absolutely. And I have to just go back really quickly, because you mentioned the K Street crowd. Can you define that a little more?
Well, it's a very conservative aspect of the Republican Party that's associated with evangelicals and with certain types of fundraising. They deal with a certain crowd that lives in a very binary world of God and devils. And that's about a third of our population here in the U.S. And I had the same problem inside my own organization. There was a very strong Christian influence in all of this, and when I pushed them to the wall, it came out, and it made me very nervous and very uncomfortable. And I watched our papers and our studies very carefully in terms of the work we did and how we presented it because of it. It's pervasive, and while I'm harping a little on Christians, it's everywhere. Believe me, the Hawaiians had things to tell me too that we're Hawaiian. People have to have some comfort level, or they can't deal with the subject, and you have to let them have it. But you should never fool yourself that that's truth.
Right.
It's evidence. It's not truth. It's evidence.
But I mean, to me, this is, we all have, I have a very strong belief in God. I have my own thoughts on spirituality and things, and I would never impose those on anyone else. And for me, my own personal sightings mean something to me, but I'm still trying to figure out what that means and what it is that's communicating with me. And when you have people in any that have very strong beliefs, that does color the way they're viewing things. And I when I look through my archive, I just think, wow. And I really honestly think historically, unfortunately, this has been a very easy subject to manipulate. It's almost like this you can get in there and test things and throw an idea out there and then see how it percolates and where it goes and all of these things. And it really it's very interesting.
Well, the bottom line, in my opinion, is that we want objective observation, clear comprehension. In other words, we want to understand what we're looking at, and then we want to respond to it correctly. That's the only way to deal with a lot of things, okay, but particularly with this unknown that is entering our space and affecting a lot of our lives. I have personal experience with it. I wouldn't be involved with this study otherwise, and I certainly wouldn't have taken the hits I've taken in doing this and putting my name on it if I didn't have direct experience with it. I certainly never made any money at it. And I've had to be Jesus scared out of me a couple of different ways by it. And I just, the proper way to go is to look at reality and let reality show you what it is. And then react accordingly and stop whistling past the graveyard and turn around and face this thing and start collecting data that is relevant to what's happening, not relevant to getting so-and-so on a podium or getting a book published or anything else. This is an emergency as far as I'm concerned, and it will be until we understand it.
And I have to ask you, because I see organizations, large organizations. I'm sure we can all figure out who I'm referring to, but you look at the way that they've really controlled the narrative and taken data and put it in this dark hole and things and created a whole kind of a money-making, a franchise for different chapters and things. And how do you feel about this type of thing? Because to me, I would say that the leaders of these organizations or the leaders in the subject have a moral responsibility to do the right thing. And none of them seem to be doing that.
Well, it's a lack of respect for the information itself. Like I said, this is important. This affects, I wouldn't want what I've been through in my experiences to be visited upon my children or yours. We need to understand what's going on and why. And for example, I went to this organization you're referring to, and with the experience that got me involved with NARCAP, and they didn't believe all three of us as we sat there and told them what happened. And he literally didn't believe me. Here's an investigator who is giving me energy that he doesn't believe me while I'm trying to tell him what I saw. So I didn't deal with them anymore. I got sicker and sicker because of what I'd experienced and the way that it had presented to me in the middle of a major metropolitan area. And then I had seen Dr. Haynes probably. I'd been studying UFOs for about 10 years prior because I'd been triggered by it, and I knew that I had more experiences coming in my life, and I should be ready for them somehow. And I had seen Dr. Haynes a number of times. He had made some pretty sane presentations, and I really kind of liked him. And you could have pushed me over with a feather when I finally just broke down and sent a report to Ames Research Center, and he came back to me. And then I ended up with 18 years with the guy. synchronicities, right? But these things make you sick. These experiences, society doesn't have a way to help you when you have these exposures, and you have to. Bottom line is you defend yourself. This is something I tell gun rights people all the time. Is that if a few of you guys are going to promise me that whenever the bad men come, that you're going to jump out and protect me and tell them to be nice to me, then I won't carry a gun. Otherwise, I'm not going to wait for you. And the same thing goes with all this research and everything. Bottom line, it's happening in my life, and I need to understand it and be ready for the next time. And it's a damn lonely road when you're dealing with a society as broken as this one. When a discussion as broken as this one around the subject.
Absolutely, and then this, to me, this is one of the things that makes me, that really bothers me the most, is the fact that there are people like you, like many other people that I've talked to. I've had experiences myself, and we turn to the community, quote unquote, whatever we want to call this crap show, and we turn to, we look anywhere for answers, and we hope that hypnotherapist or the person it's on the radio show, or
whoever it is. Yeah.
I mean, and it's like
and there's no help.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's like the more I turn and look for answers, the less I mean, it's not helpful to me. I think it is really important to hold what you experienced, almost in a way, just to keep that, to not taint it with all these other belief systems and people that don't know what what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, and that I for most of my time in the field, I haven't talked about my experiences. Only the one that got me involved with Dick. I haven't really talked about the other ones. Never mind the ones that happened to me since I've been doing field research and since I've been living here in Hawaii. But the thing is that society isn't ready. I don't think they'll ever be ready. The divisiveness we see in our culture right now, we're broken. This administration and all the other things that are going on right now, what we've lost is reasoning and logic. We had a tenuous grip on it to begin with, and now it isn't even taught. Hardly, it's an elective in college when it should be mandatory in third grade.
And we've got to take a break. I'm Erica Lukes here with Ted Roe. We will be back in a few minutes.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at ufoclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news. KCOR Las Vegas.
All the time.
Of course I listen.
I listen all day. It's the best music.
KCOR, the new underground source for news, talk, and music at KCORradio.com. Tell your friends, email them, or Facebook them, or Twitter them.
Hey, are we done here? Because I'm losing my buzz.
The disc landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazell was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to the second half of UFO Classified, and according to Libertas, this is the best section of the show, but I just wanted to throw that out there. I want to give a big shout out to Northern UFOs, who is a dear friend and a big supporter of the show and does a lot to help promote the show and support it. And I really appreciate you, Northern, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. It's experiences like this, people that I meet that understand that there's a way that we should approach this. All of you have respect for the subject. I have some of the most thoughtful listeners on the planet, and I like that. I would rather have 100 good listeners that have the rational, that can make unbiased decisions and look at this objectively than have 5 million listeners and blah blah blah. That whatever. I'm not even going to get started. I could, but I won't. But anyway, I'm here with my friend and colleague Ted Roe. We have been through a lot together, both out in certain areas, and Ted, I have to say you've definitely been one of my good friends in all of this and a support system. And we've, like I said, we've both gone through some.
Right back at you, Erica.
Yeah, thank you.
I've appreciated getting to know you. Sure, it's been really wonderful.
Well, it's never a dull moment, I know.
That's the truth.
But I think the world of what NARCAP has done. And to me, when I was state director for MUFON here in Utah, I was looking for anything that was good, any place that I could go to learn about the subject. And clearly I turned to outside sources. So
yeah.
NARCAP was a shining light to me in that regard, and Project Sphere is an exceptional paper, and you've done a lot of other things, and I encourage people to go to narcap.org to learn more about their research with regard to aviation safety, and I love it. But we've talked about so many things, our trip to Arizona, and some of the political beliefs and things that can steer the narrative, and the dysfunction of the field, and all of these things. Sure. And I want to really talk about the topic of the manipulation of this subject and the use of social media, and how people are not grasping the fact that a lot of these Facebook groups are being manipulated. There are a lot of nameless, faceless trolls who are there gathering data and targeting individuals. And given everything that you have gone through personally and how much that affected you, I wonder if you could just elaborate on some of those things to give our listeners an idea of what to look for.
Well, as far as what to look for, irrationality, unreasonable accusations, this kind of stuff, prolonged attacks, etc. But my suggestion to most people is keep it out of social media. If you want to talk to people, get their emails and get their phone numbers and communicate like human beings. The social media thing makes a bullseye out of you and a record of things, and it's a place where conflict can happen and where accountability is minimal. And very, very, it can be very damaging depending on what happens and how you play it. So I wouldn't do much of this work on social media. I told Dr. Haynes throughout, he was like, should we go on this show? Should we do this conference? And I'd always kind of come back in the negative. But what I would do is I would ask him, what do you know? Who do you want to know it, and why? And if you don't have a good answer to all three of those, then hold off. If you aren't going to put a press release out to tell people something, then where are you going to go on a show? Unless there's unless you've got something to say, why are you going there? Just because you got invited, and is that really helping what we're doing? And most of the time that worked pretty well with him until the later years. But the social media, if you're in the field, use it carefully, but don't let it all hang out, because it can come back to you. And there are people who are out there who definitely want to do you harm. You might not believe it. Nobody wants to believe that they're a victim, or that they're being victimized, or that they've been victimized. But there are trolls out there, and they do want to hurt this field. Some of it, I have to wonder if it isn't related to the coordinated attack on our social networks by the Russians. And I know that sounds a bit far-reaching, but many of you know that I'm a martial artist, and I've been involved in martial arts schools. And as it turns out, the granularity of the Russian attack was such that they went to inner-city black martial arts schools and paid those schools by the student for every black student they could bring in to teach them self-defense against white supremacists, and to carry this narrative that the white supremacists were out to get these good black folks, and so they needed to learn self-defense. And that's how far into this the Russians went with it. So if you think that they wouldn't go into Facebook on UFOs and go into your Facebook groups and go after you, ask yourself if you really have a right to that confidence. Because there are people out there and situations out there that are definitely dangerous, and you need to watch out for them.
Absolutely. And I mean, I've been, I've been sitting back and taking notes and looking at patterns and doing a lot of different research on this for many, many years. And I will say that there is something really wrong. And I am absolutely shocked that people are so trusting, and that they will, it's like there's a new Facebook group that's created, and they're tagging people about women in ufology and hooray and all these things. And it's like, okay, well, first of all, that's totally a ploy to get people pulled in. And second of all, the person who's doing it is got a fake name, and nobody knows where this person came from, and nobody is asking questions. It's like, let's all go on this person's show, and let's all give up information and join all these different social media groups and not ask questions. It's like, and give away everything. It's like, what are you thinking?
Yeah. You got somebody who won't even tell you their name, looking over your shoulder, asking you for your work. And then, and he's not accountable for anything. It's out there, and people just let it happen. That's the problem with social media. You tend to live it out because it's easier than visiting friends and maintaining real relationships. And I'm telling you, though, that it doesn't substitute for them. You need to talk to real people on the telephone or in person, and you need to develop networks that are small and reasonable and rational, and watch carefully when these agents of change come popping in and want to do things with your work. I've seen some really egregious behavior in all of this, and I just can't stress it enough. Be careful. If you value what you're doing, don't just let it all hang out. Most of the time, if you're going to write a paper, you need to find somebody who'll publish it for you. If you've got really good data, good video, then, get a hold of somebody like me and learn how to document the thing, how to write the darn thing up carefully, and then let's find somebody to review it. Get a peer review together of some kind. Do something that makes sense with the information, rather than just type real UFO in capital letters and post it on YouTube, or hand it over to somebody else that you don't even know.
Yes, I am. I mean, I will say that I'm just stupefied at at how people don't ask critical questions. It's like,
right.
Okay, we're going to believe everything, and we're going to not look back at the way this has been manipulated. And people are. I mean, I'm stunned. I'm stunned.
Well, you have the same problem. You have people being lied to directly on television over and over and over again by the same people, and it's proven that it's a lie. And yet they just continue marching on as if the lie is at somebody else. Well, he's not lying to me; he's lying to the bad guys. He's lying to the other team, right? Well, we're with him, and there's nothing rational about it. It's all about feelings, and feelings won't get you anywhere. And I'll tell you, you bring your feelings into a fight, you lose. And if you want to understand what's going on with these incursions that we seem to be dealing with, then you need to be playing heads up ball. Not projecting on it, paying attention, having a strategic mind and a tactical plan. And I don't see any of that here. I don't see any of that kind of thinking. I just see egos slugging it out. Everybody wants to be the one. They had that conference in Pahrump, was it here in March, that giant one?
Mm-hmm.
Was that March? 60-some speakers or something, an hour on the podium each. Does anybody have 60 hours worth of anything to say about UFOs that's actually true and useful? I mean,
sorry, that just, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Is there 60 hours worth of UFO info?
Yeah, I do.
I don't think there is. In terms of actual, real, solid data, there's probably not 60 hours of it, and it would put everybody in the audience to sleep if there was. It's about entertainment and community. It has nothing to do with resolving this problem. And I've been looking for a nexus of people to come together to do the work of solving the problem, and I'm not finding them. So, and I can't do it myself. There's too much to running an organization to be the sole gopher. You need help, and I don't have it. So, I've kept NARCAP up as a website, and I've kept the business open as a business. I own NARCAP; it's mine. And I'm taking reports. I do have reports. Most of them are historical, so I don't have anything that needs actual case research done on it yet. Every now and then one will come in if I can get a FISA request out on it. But I haven't been marching outward with NARCAP much. I don't. The last talk I did was at Shag Harbor, and wonderful venue, by the way. If you get a chance, go. Big shout out to Heather Giuseppe and that crowd. That was the first time I actually gave a talk about myself in the 17 years I've been in this field. It was cathartic.
I bet.
Everybody looked a little traumatized, but it was cathartic.
I wish I could have been there. I love looking at people in yeah, I mean, honestly.
Small crowd, good group, and nice people. If you get a chance to go. I actually threw a recommendation for you. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I want to say, because, we had both, a couple of years ago, I mean, we had great intentions you had come up with an idea to start an organization where we were really looking at this and addressing it, and then through a series of really interesting events, orchestrated events. Unfortunately, things did not come to fruition, but we were both the target of of attacks that were absolutely out of the blue and quite unfounded.
Yeah. I'll just I can share that with your listeners who don't know already. I was beginning to branch away from Dr. Haynes because I knew that his health was declining and that he needed to step away. And so I was preparing because I wanted to continue in the field, and I had developed enough of my own contacts in the directions that I wanted to go. I was preparing to develop a research group and hopefully an accompanying publication so that we could do peer review and publication and maybe coach researchers and kind of start having the kind of conversation we should be having around this subject that is not taking place no matter where I look. And I was in the process of doing that, and I asked you to be my director of communications. You'd done a good job with the Nephi case, working with NARCAP research associate Bill Puckett, and pulled together a team and did a good study and had a good end product and good leadership and so on. So I thought, hey, I didn't know you. That's about all I knew about you, but I invited you to consider being my director of communications, and you did. And shortly thereafter, Isaac Coy seemed to take some umbrage to that and posted a question about my effort, and some of the trolls that surround him started kind of feeding on it, and I got into it with them a little bit. My technique with people generally is that if you're rude to me, be careful, because I might just be rude back to you. But if you're polite to me, I'll always treat you kindly, regardless.
Absolutely,
of
and I want to
beat.
just put this in here because this is important in the narrative. But when I saw that that post, kind of questioning the organization and your integrity and whatever we're trying to do. I mean, it was very, it wasn't incredibly, it wasn't nice. And so I actually sent him a private message, and I said, if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask me. I'd be more than happy. I respect what you're doing with regards to archiving, and please feel free to ask me. And I got back a simple cheers, Erica. And it was like, okay.
So anyway, that kind of came and went, and then I was in a closed group on Facebook with Eduardo Podorelski's group, and I was talking to researcher Chris Rutkowski, who was talking about citation related to a photo case, an old photo case, and I think that page is preserved on Ed's site. I'm sure if you ask him. Just a second. So we're talking about citation, and he's using information that he's pulled from Isaac Coy's site, and he's citing Isaac Coy. And I pointed out that isn't a proper citation, that you have to go to the original first time that the material appeared in print. That's the original source, right? You don't cite it through other people's work. And he didn't seem to understand that. He said it again, and I said, but who the F is Isaac Coy? Question mark. A rhetorical question, right? I said, nobody even knows who he is. Nobody knows what he looks like. He uses an alias. You can't cite him as a source. He's not a credible source. And he says, oh yeah, but people know who he is. Jules Fernandez has met him, so I went and got Jules Fernandez and brought him into the group. And Jules immediately started ridiculing me and opened a page on another group I belong to dedicated to ridiculing me over that. And so I went in, and Coy was on the page. He had jumped in immediately. And I asked him whether he thought that it was really appropriate to hide behind an alias while he smeared other people's good names and their efforts. And he ducked that one. And then about an hour later, he published a note to the world, basically, that I was going to use my contacts throughout ufology to out him. And because of that, he was leaving ufology. It was really pathetic and juvenile. And I don't have a body count behind me, so you can't accuse me of being that kind of person to begin with. I'd probably given Isaac Coy all of a minute and a half's thought in 10 years, prior to that. So he tells everybody that this is what it's about, and he distributes it to everybody he knows in ufology, which is,
and he distributed it to people that were working with you at NARCAP.
Yeah, to all of my staff and my team and our German branch, and to my chief scientist, who was in declining mental faculties at the time. And his little crowd of trolls jumped out at me, and I like I said, the rude ones got dealt with rudely, and the ones that weren't didn't. And but in the end, and then I got a letter of blackmail from Jules Fernandez representing Mr. Coy, blackmailing me, telling me that he would tell the world something about me if I made any reference to any photographs or spoken in any way about Isaac Coy and tried to discuss his identity. And then, and I wrote a little note saying a little response back saying that, I had no intention of outing Coy, that it would be unethical and I had no reason to. And that, he got to look to his friends because it looks like the people around him are not acceptable. And, so, that whole thing kind of percolated for a while. And
it did. And they, during this time, both you and I received threats.
Death threats. Yeah. I got death threats. I got homophobic rants. And while I'm not a gay man, I certainly am a live and let live kind of person. Lived a lot of my life in Berkeley. And, that was probably more hurtful than the death threats. I'm a martial artist. You want to bring it, go ahead and bring it, but don't just sit there and snipe at me through a social media like you're big and bad and all of that. But I got all of that. And then Coy, of course, left Ufology, big mystery. And then, apparently a petition. Oh, Isaac Coy, please come back, and so, but
yeah. And I was stunned that people didn't,
Dr. Haynes resigned right in the middle of that. And it triggered him and his unwellness, and it created problems that didn't have to happen. And it was all about, if Coy is a human being, he's juvenile. And if he's an attorney, he's not much of one. That's, lies, blackmail, and defamation.
Well, that's why probably you hide behind, you don't put your name out there because
because you don't want to be accountable.
Right. And I'm still amazed at the people that are, again, it's like we look at where data's going. Okay.
Right.
It's like we're all going to
a polite letter, and you're going to give over everything that you've worked on to somebody who won't even tell you their name. And chances are your work will never be seen again. So what are you doing? I had to confront Dr. Haynes on this. I said, and Dick did the same thing that just about everybody else I talked to did. They told me Coy's origin story, which Coy has on his website. And that's all they know about him, but they threw that back at me as if it was fact, as if they knew it was fact, but it's not. They took it off the website. It's Coy's own words about Coy. Right? So I'm not seeing logical, rational discrimination even amongst trained minds around that. All I'm saying is be careful out there. The whole thing, it's just you'll run into these either juvenile or calculating minds. If he's calculating, they were trying to destroy Narcap, and I don't think that was the case. I think that he's just juvenile, and perhaps Jill's lied in his ear. I don't know, but he and Jill's together tried to blackmail.
Absolutely. Well, it's very interesting, and I want to talk a little bit more when we get back. I'm Erica Lukes here with Ted Roe. We will be back after the break.
Stand by.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes. The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Vegas, baby!
Vegas is #1 source for talk and new music.
How cool is that?
1 million miles till midnight. A story of timelines, artificial worlds, simulated races, and the galactic imprint. And the destiny of a blue world called Earth. 1 million miles till midnight, written by Solaris Blue Raven, is a journey through the mind's eye which allows the reader to surf a wave of technological and multidimensional intellect, revealing a bridge between conscious design and the truth. A multidimensional bleed-through awakens the world of artificial intelligence to set sail into the frontiers of a vast multiverse morphing planets and terraforming ascended worlds beyond the linear programs of a fated race. 1 million miles till midnight will awaken, inspire, prepare, and enlighten one to the many multidimensional states of consciousness and worlds we reside in. With every cell and atom, we are this truth and multiverse. 1 million miles till midnight. Written by Solaris Blue Raven. Available now at Amazon.com. Don't wait. Get your copy today.
There is a world outside that which we live in. A realm where fact and fiction collide. The Paradigm Matrix. The Paradigm Matrix. Hosted by Willie Miranda. Every Friday night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern.
The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room.
The 1 hour show that will surely leave you hanging on the edge of the rabbit hole. The Paradigm Matrix explores a universe of topics from UFOs, cryptozoology, conspiracies, as well as all things paranormal.
Enter a world of the twisted and deformed.
Friday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. The Paradigm Matrix. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network, where fact and fiction collide.
Alien Deceptions, a suspenseful sci-fi romance thriller by Tina Marie, featuring the tantalizing Erica Jones and the mysterious Russell Hamilton. An out-of-this-world book of fiction based on years of document facts and files the government does not want you to know about. At least, not yet. Alien Deceptions by Tina Marie. Available now at Amazon.com or get a signed copy at TinaMarieEntertainment.com. Get your copy now.
1, 2, 3, 4!
To the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
I love the way it sounds.
Love the music. I listen all day.
The future of radio is here and now.
You're listening to UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts!
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes. Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to the last segment of UFO Classified. It is going to be a great night on KCOR, so stick around for Willie Miranda and a wonderful night. I want to thank all of you for supporting the show, for getting in there, for asking questions, and specifically I want to thank Northern UFOs for all of his support and promoting the show on YouTube and things. I couldn't do this without him, and I really appreciate it. This show for me is a labor of love, and I have been through a lot in my time publicly in the field, as has my guest this evening. And both of us have been trying to, for the past few years, trying to process what people's motivations are and who are people that hide behind anonymity, and who are the people that are supporting this and not standing up for the right thing, and how many of these people have been manipulated. I think these are really, really, really important questions. I know that Ted Roe, the executive director of NARCAP, was mentioning his dealings with a barrister from England, that was very methodical in his baiting and then attack, and basically moving bits and pieces of a conversation around and then discrediting Ted Roe. And I think the most despicable thing for me was to see the fact that this long, elaborate letter was sent to everybody involved in NARCAP, at an organization that Ted...
Except me.
Right. I mean, and this is an organization that you have, this is your baby. And yeah. I think for people in the organization not to back you up or to question or to reach out to you is pretty, it's just
a lot of it. A lot of it is the way that the group is structured. Most people didn't deal with me in NARCAP. They were Dick's team. They were the research team, and then the international branch. So I deal with the executive officers of the other teams, and then do the executive work, which is they never wanted to be involved with that. Organizational initiatives and stuff were just outside their scope of interest. But without it, we never would have been anything. I just the defamation and the blackmail and the alias should be enough of a warning to everybody out there to just be careful around this. This is you're not dealing with honest people. You're not dealing with forthright people. You're dealing with despicable people, and just be careful. In this case, he really tried to disparage me. I don't think it worked. I think in a lot of cases, I mean, the people I talked to thought that they were dealing with a child, the way he was whining about how I was going to abuse him and all this other stuff when I had no intention to do it. I never had done that kind of thing. I'm not that kind of person. And anybody who knows me knows that. But here he was trying to make a case that I'm somebody I'm not. And,
And I think it's interesting because, that whole group has been very, very vocal about people's credentials and the integrity of the subject and all of these things. And yet, they
no integrity, no credentials. Okay. And frankly, no work.
It's like, huh.
Okay. Anybody can photocopy a bunch of stuff or scan a bunch of crap into a website. I've done it, but show me the work. And there isn't any. It's just divisiveness and nastiness, and it isn't contributing to anything. And it's despicable. It's very low. To blackmail me, that's really, really low. Anybody that wants to see it, I've got the note, and all of it. It's straight from Jill's, and it explains the whole thing. And that's how far Isaac Coy, or whatever Isaac Coy is willing to go. So, deal with him at your own peril.
Really?
I want to move on from this a little bit because I think the message is delivered there. What I really want to get onto is what kind of conversations we should be having around this subject, and how do we get there? Where do I find people that want to become more rational and more logical and don't want to project and want to make an organization that will aggressively deal with this and develop the body of work that doesn't exist right now around the subjects of ET incursions? So at least if it ever happens, somebody thought about it in some way and there's something in writing about it. I mean, can we get together a conversation that is focused around what's going on rather than on what people want to believe, or what the newest fad is in New Age UFO overlap, or whether the Bigfoots are coming with the ETs, or, I just don't, we need to get much more basic than that and have a real conversation about what really needs to be done. And is there anybody out there that wants to do that? I'm not going to say there isn't. I don't want to insult your listeners. I will say that it's been hard pulling those kind of people together and getting them to finding people that have the will to give a couple hours a week and maybe meet a deliverable once in a while and help a process and a project move forward. Because I know how to administrate. I know how to move these ideas around, but without manpower and without a good working base, it's just an exercise in stress.
Well, I will say, when you look at some of the people that volunteer for different organizations and put a lot of money and time and effort into, a social club, they could be using that time to actually contribute to the subject. And
right.
I think that, or the same thing for people that are chronically going to different conferences and spending I mean, how much is there's an upcoming conference? I mean, it's almost $1,000, to go. It's like, okay, instead of going to hear the same old, and socialize with
be entertained.
Yeah, I mean, how about putting money into good research or your time into doing something that will benefit moving forward instead of benefiting the social circus?
How about developing observational skills that are dispassionate and rational, and learning how to use those to express what you see, and then getting in the field and dealing with it. These things happen all the time, and almost anybody that wants to see an unidentified can see one. You just got to give it the time. And I'm not going to say it happens every day, but if you make the effort, there are times and there are places where things happen, and if you're there, you'll see it. And if you really care about getting the answer, then let's ask the right questions and start and admit that we don't have the answers to an awful lot of them, and start hacking through it. Results-driven research and publication and peer review. And developing a body of work that'll be of some use to us or those who follow when the unimaginable, or when the apparently unimaginable can no longer be ignored. I mean, the one that drove me into this field happened in the middle of a major metropolitan area. This thing came to me in front of 8 million other people in the area. To me, that's very disturbing, and it should be disturbing to anybody that hears it. And I don't have the answers to it, and I'd really like the real answer, not what somebody thinks the answer is. I don't think you can fiddle around with we need all the facts we can get around these kinds of experiences. And so there isn't a lot of room for conjecture and speculation. We need to do the work and get to real answers, and then develop good logic around it all. Get some bright thinkers engaged. Because this song and dance isn't going anywhere. Guarantee it. Watch it for 20 years. Going nowhere.
And I want to ask you, when you were involved with Dr. Haynes, I mean, did you ever feel, or were there certain instances where you both felt that you were being monitored, or there was something that took place that would let both of you know that there was an outside source looking at what you were doing?
Yes, several times, and I was very nervous about it too. And heck, back then we were still on dial-up modems, so all kinds of odd things that come running through your phone. I had a meeting with Dick. We arranged all of our meetings by number. So Dick would just call me and say a number, and then I'd know that was a meeting at a certain place, and I would go there. And he told me about a place and called me with the number, and I went there and met him, and I had the startup documents for the NARCAP organization with me on the table. I left to get a coffee. I came back, they were gone. And Dick couldn't find them either. The people around me didn't look good, but I couldn't, make accusations. Unusual things have happened, but all told, nobody ever interfered with our work. I never felt that I was dealing with any pushback from anyone in any real position of power that didn't want us talking. Generally speaking, we were well received pretty much wherever we went. I will say that, doing the actual outreach work was difficult, meeting with pilots and air controllers and cold meeting them and trying to be taken seriously sometimes was tough. They were around their peers and that sort of thing. But I didn't have anything that was anything covert that was overtly aggressive. Let's put it that way.
Okay. And that's good to know. And so let's talk about, I would love to ask you about NARCAP's interaction with the Chilean government.
Sure. Yeah. About 2010, I started getting emails from Chilean Air Force generals making overtures for a research agreement. And I looked it over, and at the time I thought, well, that might be something for us. And Dick was an automatic yes on it, and I wasn't, but we kind of moved that way. So I spent 6 months 8 months negotiating with the Chileans. They kind of do it on their own pace down there, so you kind of roll with them and deal with them on their time schedules. But we drew up an agreement and signed that one off in, I guess it was November, December of 2010. And then we had a relationship with them, a research agreement, a relationship with them. But I have to say that relationship, you know, a lot of these things you've got to be really careful about. They're using your name, they're involved with you, and when they make mistakes or they have credibility issues, you have mistakes and you have credibility issues. And so you need to be communicating. There needs to be interaction. We weren't having much of that. Technically, we still have an agreement with them, but I think they've hurt their credibility a bit of late, and we haven't had much in the way of communication.
So can you elaborate on why they have hurt their credibility?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, Leslie Keene was our media director for NARCAP. A lot of you people know her. She's done some good work in the field, and at the time, apparently she had become the media director for the Chilean group also. And I saw this as a conflict. And so I told Dick we needed to stop her involvement with our group if she was going to be with them. And so she stayed with the Chilean group down there. And then they published a study that had come out a year before and had been pretty much decided it was a video of a fuel dump by an airliner, and it was fairly conclusively resolved. I felt good about the research myself, and then she came out about a year later with an article with the new general of the Chilean team, and proclaiming it was a UFO and it was persuasive evidence and everything else, and it literally didn't last the day before it was rebutted. And I haven't really heard anything out of CFAA since, the Chilean group, Committee for the Study of Anomalous Phenomena. So I think that, again, this is where media and, ideally, if you've got a case and you really think it's a goer, why aren't you sharing it with your partners and having a closed consensus before you make a public announcement? That's just me being an administrator, but hey, that's why NARCAP survived and did well, was that kind of thinking. And that these are generals, it's a military operation, they don't think that way. So the relationship, I don't think, was necessarily that good for us, but it did show that we were able to operate at an international level.
And then, so what were some of the biggest achievements that NARCAP made?
Well, it just seemed to keep rolling there for a while. We ended up, we briefed the FAA's aviation safety reporting system analysts and their director, who was an advocate for us and who worked with us for years to come. That was fairly early on. We participated in briefing congressmen and their aides on our findings. And did a presentation at George Washington University to the National Press Corps in 2004. We interrogated a U.S. Air Force general on a pursuit case over Washington, D.C. We wrote Project Sphere, which was 20 contributors attacking the problem of unidentified aerial phenomena that present as spherical. And all the questions you might have around that, 20 papers or more. I wrote the U.S. Part of the study. We did a report on the O'Hare case, and that was I don't know. O'Hare's not a hill to die on. It's an interesting case, but we gave it some time, and it was one of our big ones. So we presented at the French Air and Space Academy, and then at Kaipan, which was the closed workshop offered by the French government team. GPAN, I think it is now.
Mm-hmm.
So we did quite a lot. There was a lot of other things that went on behind the scenes in terms of presentations and work that involving outreach and making connections and so on that were I thought were pretty masterful. So a lot of good came from what we did, but it came from having a professional eye and focusing on carrying the ball into new territory, not being focused on selling the idea of aliens, but definitely selling the idea that there are unidentifieds in the air and that they're a threat to aviation safety and that there's been a long history of it. And all of that's out there.
So what was one of the most thought-provoking cases that NARCAP dealt with?
You know, there are a number of them. I mean, by our purview, we took on historical cases as well as immediate ones. I think one of the more interesting ones involved a guy on a climb out from Oakland Airport who picked up a little red ball of light on his tail, and he tried to outclimb it in a climbing turn, and it stayed with him, and then he tried to lose it, and it stayed with him, and they saw it from the control tower, and that was kind of interesting. We've got, and it involved aviation safety because it took place inside of restricted airspace. Sorry about that. Put a lid on it. But I think one of our more interesting cases was it was Technical Report 7, and it involved a small ball of light flying near an airliner, and it had been shot by a group of amateur astronomers on the hills in San Bruno, south of San Francisco. And it's a little ball of light, pulls up under the tail of the airliner and leaves. And they'd shot a series of really good photos, 8 megapixel at the time in 2005, I think it was. And I thought it was a very good case and a very good example of unidentifieds. It could have been easily mistaken for ordnance, but it clearly wasn't. I've tried to get debunkers to chew on it, and they a lot of arguing about it, but nobody was able to come down and tell me that was a star or Venus or anything else based on the time and date stamp of the photographs. So I think that's a pretty good case. There's no way the crew knew it was there. It was highly mobile. It left at an acute angle, so it pulled up into the tail and then it broke away. So you had a strong sense that there was some guidance involved. I thought it was a good case.
And I agree.
But
I read about that it's an incredible case. And you can find out more about it at narcap.org.
I have a problem with one or two of our cases, and because of that, I've removed the photographs. So if you do go to the site and you see a case where the photographs are missing, it's because I'm questioning the case right now, and I'm not certain that it represents what it's originally been portrayed to represent. So we're doing a little housekeeping. And I want to make sure that I'm representing cases that I can stand behind. So.
And that is, I mean, that's the thing about this. When all of us might, looking at cases, and this is uncharted territory. So we will make mistakes and we will put things out there, and in a couple years we'll change things. And so I think that's really respectable that you would do that.
Yeah, I think it's appropriate. There's no way that I, in good conscience, can stand out there and represent a case I don't believe in, and there's a couple of them on there that I'm absolutely certain are not what it was concluded that they were, and I'm in the process of resolving that to my own satisfaction, and I think I have at least two of them. And like I said, there's nothing to be gained by promoting something that isn't authentic. There's plenty of the real thing out there, and we need to be discriminating and hold out for that, because that's where the data is.
And so what is your hope for this? Where do you want to go?
Well, I want to get a little closer. I want to get a little closer to the phenomenon again, because for some reason I'm kind of like that guy in one of those old Vietnam movies that likes to be close to the explosions.
Right. Absolutely.
For some reason, I just love getting up and watching the smoke come off of my clothes. But I want to get. I know there's more to come in my own experience. I want to understand this. I want to understand the context of what's happening to me and why. And with that, I want to get a larger picture of what's going on overall. I want to stimulate conversations that are helpful to the subject and help in any way I can, encouraging good field research and good documentation, and trying to find ways for peer review and publication. I think these are the critical issues. Everything else is kind of useless. Podiums and pontificating and all the rest of it. I just don't think there's anything good, There's only been one real science-based conference that I know of. It was in 2013 in North Carolina. I think it was 2013 or 2014. But other than that, every other UFO conference is not technical, not even close. I've got technical stuff that I'd like to share and present, but I'm not going to walk into the UFO Congress and do it. The audience isn't suited for it. I want people that know science and engineering to look at this stuff and bring logic and common sense and work through and see what's going on.
And that was, for me to, both you and I spoke at UFO Congress, and that was a great opportunity for me. I loved having that interaction and having you there, and they brought over Erling, which was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And
that was really nice. Yeah.
But it was very sad to me to see that the audience, for the most important speakers, the people that have the most information to offer. The crowd was a fourth of what it was for some of these other speakers that are, talking about the same freaking case that has been manipulated and elaborated on for, over a decade. And it's like, God, really, people?
Yeah, exactly. Here's Erling up there, and the place is 2/3 empty. I had a couple come up to me. Oh, we loved your talk. It was so nice and everything. I said, well, who else did you like? And we don't know their names.
Well, that's probably a good thing. I'm Erica Lukes. I'm here with Ted Roe. Stick around for a great night. Go to narcap.org to see the work, and we will catch you next week.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at ufoclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just